Well, hi, everybody. This is DearMamaSal, and we are live on a Friday evening, which means it's time for us to be talking about coping with life. Congratulations to everybody. If you made it through this week, think about it, a lot of people didn't. And so I've noticed in my life that I am really getting more and more grateful. I had a friend of mine who had a big birthday this week, and one of the things that I was really aware of is how lucky I was to be able to wish him happy birthday. And part of my birthday wish was that I prayed that this time next year we'd still be talking about it. And I really felt, how grateful I was. I don't know about the rest of you, but every day I wake up now, I am really grateful. We've got hopefully an interesting show for you tonight. We're going to be talking on a number of different aspects, but most of all, we're going to be talking about life in general, because it's really important for us to understand that we all cope with life on a weekly basis, and a lot of things happen in the course of the week, as we well know. We had a very interesting broadcast at lunchtime today. For those of you who might have missed it, what we were talking about was what to do in conflict. I believe that we're going to have more and more people who are going to be pontificating about different ideas and everything. And what I really wanted to show was that it is very important for us to be able to keep our cool and to keep sociable and polite and interested and open-minded. And if we do that, we can have very, very different views and still remain friends. So I'm hoping that a lot of people learned a lot from it. I certainly was interesting to do, to put it mildly. And I realized I took a huge risk in doing it because, I could upset people or whatever. But, I trusted the viewers enough to be able to make their own adult decisions. And I was amazed, the number of people that hung in there and just did the work. And it was amazing. Well done, everybody. So for those of you who are fairly new, DearMamaSal is a group of people who get together 3 times a week. Friday lunchtime, Pacific time, to talk about coping with feelings, and we sure had a lot of them today. And then Friday evenings at 7 o'clock Pacific, we get together to talk about coping with life. And then on Sunday afternoon at 3:30 Pacific, we talk about coping with stress. Why? Because every week we deal with feelings, we deal with life in general, and we sure as heck deal with stress. Hi, Virgo Soul. So good to see you again. Welcome, and big hugs to you. And to Jody, of course. For those of you who don't know, Jody is our admin, and she does such a great job. She worked miracles today. While I was busy talking about stuff, I would say, I know that I've got a feeling I'm missing a fact here that I will, and boom, Jody was off fact checking for me and coming back. And it was just, I want to tell you something, Jody, you did an awesome job. It was amazing how well you understood what I needed and just went and got it in a heartbeat. You really, I'm just amazed at some of the things you get up to there, but very, very thankful as well. A happy new day to everybody. I'd like to say that we're now on chapter 2 because it's February. For those of you who don't know, we're celebrating this year in terms of chapters and pages. So it's chapter 2 because it's February. And we're on page 36 of 365. Isn't that amazing already? By the way, Jody's saying she loved it. It was a pleasure to assist. Well, it's I'm certainly learning a lot more about you when we get into these situations, Jody. And there's part of me that goes, I don't think I even have to ask Jody to go and look. I was pretty sure you're going, yeah, she needs a fact there. And you do this, hi, Isa. How do you do it, Jody? You do it with a tablet or Chromebook, I think, all right? That you manage to communicate and do all that research all in the heartbeat. And it just is mind-blowing to me. I just wanted to say that I'm not aware of any birthdays this week. Hi there, Nyasha. Good to see you. And always a pleasure to see you. For those of you who don't know, Nyasha joins us all the way from Tobago. That's the little island off the little island of Trinidad. You've got Trinidad and Tobago. The two islands make up one country. And it's always a pleasure. Jodie does her miracles between her phone and her Chromebook. I mean, it's just amazing how you do it, and I'm so grateful. I just wanted to say I was sad to hear that Christopher Plummer passed today, and or at least I only heard of his passing today. So Christopher Plummer, Sound of Music. What else, people? So many other things that I can't think of for the moment. So maybe let me know what was your favorite Christopher Plummer role. Very well-known actor. Hi, Sharon. Unfortunately, saying Sharon's name always makes me laugh, and then I was drinking coffee at the same time. Very difficult. Right, so does anybody want to tell me, how was your week this week? How was life? Did it treat you well? If you could put your life into one word for this week, or a couple of words, how would you describe your life this week? I love to, sort of think about that, because it's like we don't necessarily plan the life we got this week. I certainly didn't plan mine. And so I was saying at lunchtime that, my week was, in a word, sick. And I fought it so hard. I tried so hard not to be sick, but I was. And as you can probably imagine, I don't do being sick well. The most difficult thing, I don't know why, but the most difficult thing for me is actually to give myself permission to be sick. Do any of you relate to that one? I always query, am I just being lazy? The fact that I didn't want to get out of my jammies and all I wanted to do was curl up on the couch and, binge watch something. I kept saying to myself, are you just being lazy? And I eventually had to admit, no, I don't think I am. I'm actually not well. And I was saying at lunchtime that the way I really realized it was after 2 days of doing that, literally 2 days of not even getting dressed, but just literally moving from my bed to the couch. I realized I had 2 days without taking medicine, and all sorts of things in my usual routine didn't happen. I didn't exercise, so I was beating up on myself for that. It was just like so many things. Yes, Jodie, and it's funny, isn't it, how Jodie's saying she always remembers Christopher Plummer singing Edelweiss in Sound of Music. And I think it's, that was a memorable role for him. He played so many other parts, but that's the one we will all remember, because, he was just so good in that. And I often think that, it must be difficult for actors when they have a breakout hit like that, to get away from it. Look at what Tom Selleck had to say about it was so difficult, as much as he has enjoyed the revenue from Magnum PI, it was so difficult to break out of that role. In other words, people just didn't want to see him not be Magnum. They wanted him to continue all his life to be Magnum. And then, it was interesting. He even tried shaving off his mustache and did all sorts of things to see whether he would be more accepted. I remember he did, wasn't it Quigley Down Under or something? And that sort of hit well. And then he found the character Stone. I can't remember what his first name was. Anyway, but a bit of a sort of sheriff who became a small town sheriff. And it was really interesting because that started him on a different path. And then Jesse Stone. Thank you, Jodie. And then that, I believe, led to him taking the part for Blue Bloods, and that became another epic role, which he's been in for a long time. So good for him. He deserved another big hit, because I think he's contrary to, who did not love him as Magnum? It's amazing. You look at it and you go, the part was made for him at that time, and he obviously enjoyed playing it. So trying to stop pretending that I wasn't sick was very difficult. And I was trying to imagine the things the things I had to do to give myself permission. I think I even asked Jody if I could get permission to be sick for a couple of days. It was just like I did not want to be sick, but I knew that I was, and I knew I needed to stop and stop thinking about the house and renovations. For those of you who don't know, my house burned in September, and they're busy rebuilding. I'm pleased to report that they have got the insulation in, they've got the ceiling up, yay. They were busy working on the drywall today, and so that was quite exciting. And now I've got lots of decisions to make. Do I want to paint or re-wallpaper? And that's going to be a decision for this week. And I've got to make decisions about the cabinetry and stuff like that. So I'm glad I'm feeling a lot better, because I'm obviously going to need some energy for that sort of thing. So the Virgo soul is saying to me, my week was extremely challenging mentally and physically. I was home alone for a few days, didn't want to do anything, spent the entire day under my blanket. And then I had to tell myself, stop this. So it wasn't that you were sick, but you took the opportunity to have a me day. And, it's funny, because after 2 days of being sick, I said, I need to get out into some fresh air and do something differently, because I wondered how much of my being sick had to do with, going stir crazy, because I hadn't been out of the house for over a week. So that's what I did yesterday, and it definitely has helped. But you can probably hear I'm still not right. And some of you are going, Sal, you're never going to be right. And Jody's saying, I hope I convinced you that it's okay to be human for a couple of days. I don't see myself as superhuman. And by the way, I thought that was the greatest comment. One of the viewers at lunchtime today said she saw me as humble. Try not to choke on your coffee, people. Saw me as humble. And I'm going, I've lived 73 years, in fact, 73 and a half already. And I'm going, I don't think anybody has ever used the word humble to describe me. But I was so glad that in my lifetime, at least one person could see that part of me. And I don't know about you, but it was just like, wow. It took 73 and a half years for me to hear that word as a definition of who I was. And I go, yeah, I can handle that. But it was difficult because I'd never heard that before. But she had to be right, because it was her opinion, right? So I was thinking about, what did I have to let go of in order to allow myself to be sick? And what I realized was I had to let go of my ego. I had to let go of my routine. I had to forgive myself for not doing exercise, all sorts of things. And so, here I am, feeling a lot better for doing it. So thank you all for the support. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I did put up a poll to ask on Sunday. It is Super Bowl Sunday, and I'm pretty certain a lot of people want to watch Tom Brady win the Super Bowl for yet another club. He left the Patriots and now he's with another club, and showed that how good he was, because he took that club straight to the Super Bowl. And so to me, it's about, I'm pretty certain a lot of people are going to want to watch that. So I am thinking I need to decide whether just to cancel it, which I may do, or whether I should move it. I'm just waiting to hear. So if you haven't seen it, I've put the poll on YouTube under Dear Mama Sal, and feel free to, add your sort of vote for that, so I know what everybody would like to do. I know what you're saying. It's your show, Sal. You can do whatever you like. Well, yeah, but I would like to, make sure that what I do is a group decision rather than just mine. All right, so here's your question of the week. Do you know what the cancel culture is? That is cancel as in stop. I'm just going to type that for the viewers here. And it was one of those words that came up a lot this week, and I thought, I wonder whether everybody knows what that is. So anybody, do you have any input for me? I know what it is because I did a bit of research, but I just wondered if any of you, you know, want to tell me or take a guess at it. And it's definitely something that's come up in the recent, I would say, fairly recent past. And I saw it come up a couple of times this week, and I thought, when it starts coming up that often, then we need to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about. So, all right, I'm still waiting. I'm not getting any answers on this one. How many of you would like to know? You're going to find out anyway. All right, so here we go. I looked it up on dictionary.com. It's already got as far as being in the dictionary, so it's important that we understand it. Cancel culture refers to the popular practice of withdrawing support for, i.e. canceling, public figures and companies after they've done or said something considered objectionable or offensive. The cancel culture is generally discussed as being performed on social media in the form of group shaming. Well, I just saw the news this afternoon, and I saw that Fox News has canceled Lou Dobbs after all this time. And guess why? Because of I believe anyway, this huge multi-billion-dollar lawsuit that they're going to get hit with. And I think what they're trying to do is to show that they're trying to change their format and their culture post the last 4 years. And so I thought it interesting that the cancel culture is actually having, hi Nada, good to see you again, is actually having an effect now on the media as well. So, but do you understand it's when a lot of people come out as haters against certain people. I also, for those of you who weren't there at lunchtime, had quite a discussion about the fact that, we need to understand that life in the next few years is going to be very interesting as we change a lot of things, right? I hear that certain people are about to go to court for the words that they have said. In other words, words are beginning to matter now. It's, yes, you have free speech, but be very careful about the words that you use because there are still limitations on what you can say. All right. And threatening to kill people and all that sort of stuff, is not acceptable. All right. So Virgo Soul is saying, yes, it can be effective, but it can also turn very toxic as well. This is the cancel culture. That's not easy to say, even on coffee. Imagine if I'd had a drink. So if you think about it, it is part of the new way of things getting done, right? And I think part of the challenge for those of us who are older is we are going to see some major shifts done in communication in general. And we won't like all of them, that's for sure. But also, I believe there's going to be a whole generation of people who are going to have to learn that, yes, you can have free speech, but there is a limit to how you can do that. You're allowed to say what you think, in as much as I don't agree with him, but you don't get to threaten people or intimidate them or do whatever, and that's really important for us to know and understand. All right, here's a tip for the week. I didn't know this one, and I've never tried it, but here's what I found out. They're saying if you want to clean the glass in your oven, that when it gets yucky inside, they're saying it's a good idea to take a dishwasher cleaning tablet. Interesting, right? And it says what you should do is wear gloves because that tablet has some bleach in it. And then just wet it slightly. Don't get it sopping wet, but just dampen it down. And then just use it as a scouring pad. And it'll just scrub away the grime. And, as I'm talking, I'm thinking, well, wouldn't it do that on the bottom of pans as well? How many of you are going, Sal's going to be trying that this week? Actually, the pans aren't mine. I'm in this rented place, but, it's like, I wonder whether that would work. Yeah, I think so. I've revisited an old friend since I've been in this apartment. I decided to get some Murphy's oil soap, which, by the way, doesn't have oil in it at all. And I just find that it just cleans floors much better than most things and just has such a nice smell to it. And, it smells clean to me. And so, not that I'm promoting it for gain here. I'm not. I'm just telling you the fact. And it's just like, it's really amazing. Oh, and the other tip that I found, it's a really good idea. I've got one of those dust mops that is like a flat rag. Do you know what I'm talking about here? It's not a mop. It is made of material. And after I've washed that material and I put it back on the mop head, I then spritz my cupboards, and I use that. I use that to clean my cupboards because it reaches up high and it covers a big area, and then it also reaches down low, and I can do my cupboards in no time at all. Just a thought for those of you who might have one of those. And the other thing is, if you happen to have a squeaky floor, you've got maybe laminated floors, or maybe you've got real wood floors if you're really lucky, and you find that some of them are a little bit squeaky. Did you know that throwing some baby powder in between the planks works really well? So just sprinkle some baby powder. And by the way, from experience, be aware that the floors, once they've got baby powder on them, are extremely extremely slippery, and you will end up like a baby on the floor if you're not very careful. But anyway, what you do is you just sprinkle some down, and then take a brush or a dust broom or whatever you have, and just work it in between the gaps in the planks, and it'll work its way through. And as it works its way through, you will find that the friction isn't there anymore, and they will stop squeaking. It works really well. I'm quite surprised. You have a squeaky door. Do you have any? The hinges are squeaking, Nada? Hi, Sandy. Good to see you. Jody's saying, great info. I didn't know these facts. Well, I just want to double check here if Nada, are the hinges squeaking? Is that what's making the noise? You said a squeaky door, but is it the hinges? So if so, let me just carry on. If so, WD-40 works really well. A couple of drops of oil, if you've got some silicone oil, if you happen to have some lubricant for your treadmill, or lubricant that you have for your sewing machine, or if you've got anything that's silicone oil, just drop a couple of drops of that in and work the door. That will help. And the other thing is, if you don't have WD-40 and you do have cooking spray works well. If you haven't got the WD-40, you sort of huck that in until you get the WD-40 would be my recommendation. So I hope that helps, Nada. And by the way, just don't overdo it, right? Protect the woodwork, make sure you've got a paper towel underneath so you can sop up whatever drops through, be smart about it. Oh, I've got some unboxing that I thought you would enjoy. The first bit of unboxing is, I've started to think, what do I want when I go back to my home? No, don't use cooking oil. That goes rancid. but a spray, the cooking spray will do much better, because I think that's different. So I understand. Oh, you got here just in time, Sandy. Okay, so here we go. What I started to think about when I leave here, because you know my mind, it wants me to leave here now. When I leave here, what will I miss? Right? Because this came furnished. And although it doesn't have half the things I wanted, it does have some things that I didn't have that I now want. As you know, the little Dutch oven, I really fell in love with that. And I still haven't got that yet, but it's on my list. But this is another thing that I don't have in my house, but I've got one here. And so I bought myself one, which is one of these pop-out drying racks for the sink. For you know, I've got two sinks here, and I see, and this comes off so you can clean it nicely. I love the one I've got, and by the way, you see how it's got these little places here so you can put cutlery in. I put a little yogurt cup into one of these. And then when I use my scrubby brush, the sponge, you know, that contains soap, you know what I mean? I put it with the head of it over the little yogurt container that I drop into one of these. And so any liquid drops into there. And I use that liquid to put into, you know, my, what do you call it? Dish bin. Oh, really? So, words. You know, I got a basin in the sink, all right? And I just use that liquid that comes out of the other thing in there when I'm soaking things. But I love the fact that it, you know, has holes in it so it drains nicely, and that it collapses so nicely when you want it to. So if you don't want it there, you know, you can just put it underneath. So that was the first thing. And I was really happy with that. Now, the second thing I got, I don't know how to describe this to you. I've talked about it before, but I get really upset. I'm pre-diabetic. I need to test my blood. Does it fit in the sink? It actually fits across the sink, the way that I put it on there. I don't know if it fits in it. Not into this one, I don't think. I'll let you know after I've tried it, Sandy. I'll try it this week. I mean, tomorrow or whatever, and see if I like it because it actually goes across the sink, side to side. So it, you know, you can actually, it's higher. So that I like. Anyway, so I'm pre-diabetic and I need a testing kit. And I think you all know that when I had the fire, I had to go and buy a new one. So I did. Let me tell you something. I need, for the second time, I need more testing strips. The testing strips here, for me in Canada, to rebuy this name brand, high name brand testing thing, it will cost me $86 Canadian to replace 100 of them. Okay. Now I don't consider myself a cheap person, but I really get incensed about that. And the reason is I have a testing kit that I got directly out of China on Wish. I'm not getting paid for this, people. All right. And it's a full testing kit. And the difference is for the same $86 and this, I was able to get 100, 200, 300, 400 strips and 400, I call them pokey things. I think they're called lancets. Now, when you're on a limited budget, I don't know about you, but that's quite a difference. And I wanted to say that, you know, I ordered them quite a while ago because it takes time for stuff to come from Wish. But I saved myself a huge amount of money. So the question that you might have is, does the tester work as well as, you know, the the name brand one? And my answer is, where do you think they're made? So different sort, but it works. And now I don't have to ask myself, can I afford to test more often when I'm not feeling well? Do you understand the difference in that? I think any of you who are on a limited budget will understand that as our expenses go up, you're going to have to make choices about what's important to you and what isn't. Getting information about my blood sugar, because I'm pre-diabetic, is really important to me. And therefore, I would rather be prepared and know that I have now got testing strips and pokey things, known as lancets, for the next few months at a decent price, because that allows me to maybe spend that money on something I need somewhere else. Now then, I've got another thing that I wanted to ask you. Does anybody have anything that they would like to discuss this evening before I carry on? If so, let's start talking about it now while you get a chance. Because it's like, to me, it's really important that we understand that the good that we do as a group of people is the stuff that we talk about that everybody is dealing with, right? And it's not just what I'm dealing with, it's what you're dealing with and what's troubling you in your life and what challenges you have had and overcome, what joys you have had and overcome are all part of what makes this a learning lesson. And so if anybody had a particular challenging week, let me know. Did anybody get any exercise this week? Yeah, and Jodie's saying that she's glad I'm, stocked up on testing supplies. Jodie, I knew that with the trouble I've been having with my numbers, that I need to test more often to make sure I know what's going on. And that was starting to worry me because can I afford to test more often? And I know what I'm going to do. And funny enough, this came up for me a little while ago. When last time the blood sugar went funny. And so this was like, what do I need, right? It's not what I can't do, it's what can I do? And what I could do was order up some stuff straight out of China. And that way I would be able to, test more often. And, I did a double test on it today to see how close it is to the expensive one. Yeah, I think it's 1.1 difference somewhere. All right, so Jodie's saying, I was awful about my exercise this week, to be honest. There you go, so was I. I failed at making time for it, and I feel the difference physically. Okay, so Jodie, let's start again. Let's turn the page on last week, and let's start again this week. I certainly want to do the same thing. I could feel the difference, and I have to say that when I started to not make it part of my get-up routine, when I started to say, okay, well, I'll do it later. And, then I find I was at 11 o'clock at night trying to do steps because I hadn't done it. It doesn't matter when you do the exercise. It doesn't matter. You don't have to go outside. It's called movement. Can you, quite honestly, if you make a commitment that I'm going to get up and clean 3 windows next week, that is exercise, because you probably don't normally do that. If you decide, okay, I'm going to turn the mattress on my bed this week, it's exercise, it's movement, you're using different muscles. The other thing is, be aware, as we're in a pandemic, how much are you sitting? Because that is part of the problem. And at the very least, sit at a different angle. I actually do my broadcast sitting at a different angle than when I would normally sit. If I normally sit here, I would be on the couch, leaning back and watching television, right? So when I do the broadcast, I make sure that I'm leaning forward, stretching those back muscles, and it's a whole different thing. I'm leaning on a little table in front of me as I talk to you, and it's actually a very comfortable position. And you know why? It's stretching my back. I've said to many of you, if you can't do anything else, sit on a chair or in the washroom, wherever you want to sit, and then touch the floor while you're sitting, all right? And then walk your hands forward, see how far you can stretch. Why? It's all going to stretch your back. And very important. Now, I found out some interesting facts this week that I didn't know. Hi, Chip. Good to see you. I found out some interesting facts about the perks that past presidents get. Now, this is not a political thing as much as I found it really interesting and why it started. What happened was that, first of all, did you know that every president, when they leave and become an ex-president, they get a guaranteed income? Don't know if you know that. And the guaranteed income is the equivalent of about $225,000 a year at the moment. The question is, why did that come about? Well, it happened because a former president, I can't remember which one, hang on a second, see if I can go back a space. Hang on one second. Trying to remember who it was. Yes, before the Former President's Act was passed by Congress in 1958, American presidents, as they left, were largely on their own when they got out of office. George Washington enjoyed a lucrative career distilling whiskey. Did you know that? In his Mount Vernon estate. Taft was promoted to the Supreme Court, and Theodore Roosevelt turned to nonfiction writing. However, when Truman left office, he was almost broke. And he was living off a very modest pension that he got from his service in World War I. And he didn't want to commercialize his former office. And so he didn't accept some of the jobs that he was offered. And, they thought that was wrong. They thought that no ex-president should struggle to earn a living. And so what they did is they came in with this new act to say that every president, when they become an ex-president, will get a minimum income of what was they said when they did it, of $25,000 a year. And it is, as I said, about they link it to a level one, executive level one employee in business. And so I thought that was really interesting. Now, the other thing, even former presidents who have resigned office, as Richard Nixon did, are eligible for that pension. However, just in case it happens, a former president who has removed from office via impeachment are not eligible. Well, I'm not sure how that's going to play out. So we'll see about that. Did you know that former presidents keep their Secret Service protection? I didn't know that it was forever. And what they're saying, one of the most important perks provided to former presidents is a lifelong protection by the Secret Service. I thought they got some, but I didn't realize it was lifelong. It's actually lifelong. For both the president and their spouse, obviously, and a protective detail also extends to their children up to the age of 16. That's if they got minor children, right? Now, interestingly enough, Richard Nixon dismissed his Secret Service protection after 11 years. And so you have the right to say, hey, the country's got used to me being here in this neighborhood now, and I'm not being harassed or anything. So, you can take it now. Oh, interesting. Jody is saying that the original act provided for lifetime Secret Service protection for former presidents. In 1994, the protection was reduced to 10 years for presidents first taking office after 1996. Now, there I learned something new, which goes to show. Thank you, Jody, for that. Did you know that ex-presidents are not allowed to drive on public roads? I didn't know that. It's like, really? I didn't know that. So apparently, so the story goes here, that, if you like driving on the open road, don't run for president. While in office, obviously, they're not allowed to drive, except, some of them drive around the White House grounds, but they're not allowed to drive. They have to be in a carcade. And so that is really important to know. But even when they have retired, they're not allowed to drive. I didn't know that. And it says that even vice presidents, former presidents and even vice presidents are not allowed to drive on public roads, and instead they have to rely on the Secret Service agents who are trained in evasive driving maneuvers. All right. George W. Bush, in an interview, actually revealed, I thought this was interesting, that he hadn't driven in nearly 25 years. And I thought, boy, that's interesting. I didn't know that. Did you? And so, it's just like they got this whole bunch of stuff. There is a rule that says that, and let me see this. This is a pesky rule as part of the President's Record Act of 1978, passed in the wake of Watergate. Every piece of official communication that comes from the president during the time in office must be kept, archived, and made available to the public 5 years after the administration ends. How many of you are going, I bet some of it doesn't? Since 2014, this law has included all electronic communication related to official business as well, which is why private email accounts are a no-no for presidents when they're discussing business. So I didn't know that that they had to keep it all after they're out of office. Believe it or not, former presidents don't automatically get health insurance. It says you only get that benefit if you spent at least 5 years as a federal employee. So guess what? If you only do one term, you don't get the health insurance. I didn't know that. If you're a one-term president, you're SOL on that one. And we know that it's really important for their protection, for them not to go too many places alone. And it was interesting that one former Secret Service agent told NBC News that having a Secret Service detail is probably one of the most intrusive things that anybody can experience. And he said, if you want to know what it's like, imagine that you're at home tonight and then suddenly 4 strangers walk into your kitchen and stand around and watch you cook, because that's what it feels like. And I guess they get used to it. And I also think that, they have ways, and we know that there's certain presidents I won't mention who used to make a habit of ducking the detail and going out for a burger. Both the president and his vice president managed to do that. How they did it, I will never know, but they managed to do it a number of times, which of course was a total no-no. But I bet they felt like school kids, right? Do you know it's a rule? This is interesting. It is a rule that you don't run again. All right. After the then President Franklin Roosevelt won the 1940 election for an unprecedented 3rd term, followed by his winner for a 4th term, the 22nd Amendment was ratified to keep the president from serving more than 2 terms. I didn't know that. So you're allowed 2 terms, but after that, you're not allowed another one. But are you allowed to be re-elected? So obviously the rule does not apply to presidents who serve only 1 term, right? Meaning that ex-President Trump can run again if he wants to. I tell you all these things, the things we learn. Now that was interesting. Did you know that you can't pick a former president to be a vice president? In other words, had Joe Biden wanted to have Barack Obama as his vice president, he can't do that. I didn't know that. It's. I often wondered whether they would do that, or even ask Michelle if she would run for vice president. All right, so unlike sitting president, former presidents don't have to worry about every phone conversation that they have. However, can you believe it that the Secret Service has to approve all electronic communication devices used by presidents or former presidents, including their phones? So if a former commander-in-chief wants the latest iPhone or whatever, they have to run it by the security people first. Now, they can't just choose their own. They have to check if it's okay with the security detail. And I would presume that would be for them and their children as well. All right. Anybody else finding this interesting other than Jody? Because to me, it was just like, wow, I didn't know that. I don't want to bore everybody. All right, so the other thing is this. There's this presidential townhouse. I think that Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, has moved into it at the moment. It's called the Presidential Townhouse. And I didn't know it, but ex-presidents, when they come back to Washington for any reason, need to stay there. And the reason is because it's already fully security checked out regularly, plus there is enough room to accommodate all the Secret Service detail people as well. And so it's just like, if you're coming to Washington for any official business as an ex-president, you get to stay there. And by the way, when they say it's a townhouse, it's not one. I was reading about that recently. It's like 5 or 6 of them grouped together. All right. And it's so they can accommodate, for example, if you have 4 ex-presidents there, they can accommodate all of them and their security detail. They've bought up enough of these townhouses. So it's like a hotel. And it's connected so that they can all go and eat, and they have a communal dining room if they want it, and all sorts of things. So very interesting. They were saying that former presidents are living a lot longer than they used to. Right? And people used to pop off pretty quickly after they had their 4 or 8 years in service. But they're saying now that, it hasn't. They are outliving these times quite well. So at the moment, if you think about it, Jimmy Carter, he's coming up to 40 years of being out of office. And I don't know if you know, but James Polk, who was the president, I think he was in 1849. He only lived a very short 103 days after leaving office. So there are allotted money for staff. Did you know that? They better keep that team pretty small. And if they, in other words, they get a limited budget to have certain staff members. But, when they're in office, they have a staff of about 400 people. when you leave office, oh, and by the way, they have a budget for those 400 people of about 40 million. However, when you leave office, you do get a budget for staff, but it's only 96,000. So you understand that's very limited by comparison. And interesting, I saw that there was a quote from Barack Obama who said one of the things he missed about leaving the White House was the camaraderie with his White House team. And I think, wasn't it George W. Bush that used to challenge the staff members at the White House to games of horseshoes on the front lawn, you know, and things like that. I mean, some presidents have really tried to make living there while they were there, you know, as normal as possible. And obviously they couldn't get all of the security team to play against them, but they'd take members, you know, who were off duty and play with them, and they'd take, you know, valet staff and cooking staff and everybody else and chuck them in there and go, okay, we're playing horseshoes now. And who's going to say no to the president? I thought that was wonderful. We know that ex-presidents are expected to represent the country abroad. We've seen that. And some did it better than others. Obviously, they're not meant to share any state secrets. Yeah. Now, that goes without saying, but one wonders. I was seeing an interview this afternoon where they were going, how are you how are you going to, you know, make sure that an ex-president doesn't share any secrets? And you know, and they were asking an ex security guy, and he's saying it's going to be very difficult, quite honestly. So here we go. The average president earns about 400,000 a year while he's doing that job, and you know that's not very much money when you consider the stress of it. And they're saying that George W. Bush made an estimated 15 million from speeches alone after he left office. Okay, and Bill Clinton earned 15 million advance on his memoirs alone. Pretty interesting. And raked in more than 75 million from speeches. Apparently, Clinton is quoted as saying that he never had any money until he got out of the White House, and he's done pretty well since then. That was quite cute. So, in other words, the legacy of having been a president, you know, and all that notoriety helps the income no end. And, you know, there is a sort of rule, an unwritten rule that you will not criticize the incoming presidents. Well, I think that rule fell apart recently. Oh, the other thing is, if you're going to be a past president, don't expect any private mail. All right? Because guess who's checking every bit of mail that comes to you? Right? And it's not checked at your home. It's checked in a private place under secure conditions and all that. Hi, Roddy. Good to see you. And the agency checks every piece of mail that an ex-president receives. This means that it would be pretty tough to surprise your favorite agent with a birthday gift you bought online, right? Because you can't do it. Everybody's checking everything, even after you've left. So you are buying a life of no more privacy. Even when you've left office, apparently, you know, the presidential motorcade never has to obviously obey any traffic lights or anything, right? They want the president sitting around. And he said it was one of the, and Barack Obama said it was one of the biggest changes he had to get used to when he left office, because he was so used to not having any traffic on the roads where he traveled, you know, after 2 8 years in the job. He said when he became an ex-president, it was like, oh, we have to stop for traffic lights now. Can you imagine that? Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, we have traffic lights now. You also get the means to run a new office, right? Thanks to that former President's Act. You get, the country will pay for you to have an office. And in the year of 2018, Bill Clinton and George Bush had the most expensive offices of any living ex-presidents, each billing with more than, 440,000 for their leases. Meanwhile, Jimmy Carter rents space at 112,000. Which seems, pretty cheap compared to it. You get to open up your own, as you know, presidential library. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I don't know about the rest of you, but I think the presidential libraries are a wonderful touch because it helps so many people learn so much more. And so I think, that is something that I don't know about the rest of you, but I think that's a wonderful gift to any community. And the fact that they can, build it in their own community is wonderful. By the way, did you know that the Act not only covers them, but also their spouses? So even if the ex-president dies, as let's say Ronald Reagan did, the spouse is eligible for an annual pension of 20,000, which is not very much when you think about it, but at least they do continue. And as a rule, as a result of the rule, all right, the spouse is only eligible for that modest pension if they relinquish any other pensions or annuities that they might hold. And interestingly enough, Nancy Reagan and Betty Ford accepted their annual payments after their husbands died. Isn't that interesting? I think one of the things that they're saying is former presidents enjoy a lot more personal freedom as soon as they leave office, right? They're once again able to go to movie theaters and eat in restaurants and all the rest of it and take commercial flights. Barack Obama said that he enjoyed simply being able to make his own decisions about how to spend each day. Can you imagine that? There wasn't somebody walking in and saying, at 10:32, we're going to be meeting with the ambassador from so-and-so. At 10:45, you will be in the motorcade going towards, and then at 11:02, you will be putting a wreath on the, unknown tomb with the unknown soldier. And then, because that's what happens all the time, that you are president, you're not making those bookings, somebody else is, and you are told what to do, all right? And, that was another thing that Barack Obama said, is that after he left office, it was wonderful to be able to control your day for you could do what you wanted to do, as opposed to what somebody else had scheduled you to do. Although it's not a perk that they ever enjoy, if you're an ex-president, you get to have a state funeral, as we have seen. And that is all part of, the role, is that we get treated like a president the whole way through. Do you know that they now get a pension, but they also get 50,000 expenses a year and 100,000 travel expenses a year and 19,000 for entertainment. So if you need it, and obviously we're talking about Bill Clinton and George W. Bush saying that they made millions out of speaking gigs. They didn't need that money. Mike Pence, in case you're interested, does he get anything? He will get about 235 to 240,000 a year. And, quite honestly, that's, I know an awful lot of people that would live quite well on that. However, if you think about it, the way they've been used to living, that would be probably quite a step down in terms of that. And, you got to look at the stuff that went with them as well. They all, if you think about it, they all are going to have a big shift in their earnings. So which did you find the most interesting of those? I never thought about the fact that they're never allowed to drive on a public road without a highly trained escape artist at the wheel. That I didn't know. Interesting stuff. So any questions that I won't be able to answer, but if you have any, let's talk about them. Yeah, Jodie's saying that they're not being able to drive was a surprise to her as well. Yeah, but interesting, right? You think about, I can imagine how frustrating that must be to learn not to be able to drive yourself when you first start. And I always remember, was it Jay Leno or somebody? No, Jerry Seinfeld actually picked Obama up and drove him around the White House grounds, doing that comics and cars thing, right? And he actually picked the president up, and he wasn't allowed to leave the grounds, but he could drive with the president around the grounds of the White House. And I thought that was such an endearing thing. Can you imagine what it must have been like for President Obama going, okay, Jerry, let's just drive around the parking lot here, whatever it was that they did. And, it probably felt like a field trip. How many of you saw the pictures, by the way, of the new dogs at the White House playing in the snow? And I thought, I don't know, it touched my soul to see dogs back at the White House again. I love that. Anyway, so having said that, I'm going to talk a little bit now with some quotes on dealing with change and things like that. And it's said that you can't change what's going on around you until you start changing what's going on within you. As some of you know, I'm really struggling with my blood sugar going a bit wonky. And I've got two choices, all right? Get it under control or get help. And as you know, I'm fighting the need to get help because I really believe I can control it. But boy, it's been difficult after Christmas this year. So what do I know? Next Christmas, I'm going to have to be doubly careful about what I do. However, complaining about it, getting angry about it, and all those sort of things are not going to change it. It's not what I can't do, it's what can I do. So I am busy, as you know, trying to work out a new way of eating that is a routine. In other words, I am allowed to have a slice of bread for breakfast as long as it's sourdough and I make it myself. I am allowed to have, a salad once a day. In fact, it's a good idea to do that. I am allowed to have, a boiled egg during the day sometime whenever I want it, because that's a good protein snack, and sort of try and work out what can I have and get back into that routine. And by the way, I did make mac and cheese yesterday and still managed to eat that. And by the time I went to bed last night, my blood sugar was still was well within range, which was great. But what I did is I didn't have as much as I would like. I had about a cup. And then I mixed the rest of it in with vegetables and some leftover meat. And that's like a casserole that I'm going to be eating for sort of small meals during the week, in between lunchtime meals. I'll just take another cup and have that for lunch. How about this one? Wayne Dyer, and I quote him a lot, said, peace is the result of retraining your mind to process life as it is, rather than as you think it should be. How many of you have found that by dealing with life as it is, reduces so much of the trauma or that you were going in before? And, to me, that is really the important part of it, is knowing that your life comes with ups and downs. And if you expect life to just be good all the time, you're not dealing with reality at all. I like this quote, and it said, "Be patient. Everything is coming together. Whether you're waiting, what you're waiting for is on its way to you." Isn't that beautiful? And if you really truly believe that, you will have a happy life. And if you understand that everything that happens to you may not make sense right now, but 5 years from now, you'll be going, wow, now I can see why that had to happen. And life, they say, is all about accepting changes and looking forward to what makes you stronger and more complete. So don't fight change as much, all right? Try and find some peace in change. For those of you who remember, after the fire, I knew I was going to get relocated. I tried very hard to be grateful for the hotel room next to the train. But after 2 weeks of that, I knew I'd had enough, and therefore I wanted to move, and I did. And I went to another hotel. And then I really missed having an oven. I was fed up with trying to cook meals on, 2 burners. I was very grateful to have the kitchenette, but after a month, I was fed up with trying to cook on 2 burners. And that's why I moved here, where I've got a full kitchen and a proper bathroom and everything. So, it's like now I've been here. I moved here at the beginning of November, right? So November, December, January, we're now into February. This is my 4th month here. Now it's time for me to go home, When I say it's time for me to go home, we're coming towards the end of winter soon. And, I'm starting to think seedlings and Tommy the tomato and stuff like that, as I'm sure you can imagine. And they're part of my life. So it's, I've already ordered seeds. They'll be arriving tomorrow, I think. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it because it's like I won't be able to use my deck to grow seeds on at home because they're still, busy on my deck doing stuff, bringing things in and out with all the renos that's happening. So I may have to turn my deck here into my greenhouse. Yes, it's time for new beginnings. Yes, you know me well. And also new beginnings without my one shed that I had last year. So I've got to, now every time I want a weed whacker, I've got to crawl under the house to get to it, stuff like that. So it's going to be a lot of change. Oh. Not a good idea. It's going to be a lot, but the more I fight it, it's still going to be a lot of change. So I might as well not fight it and just what can I do and how can I do it? Make sense? And, to be grateful for what I have is really important. And what change can you see coming for you in the next season? If I can talk the season, because I'm looking at it and going, boy, we are just, a week away from Valentine's Day, just about, and then it's, we're on to Lent and Easter, and hopefully I should be home by then, but who knows? Something could go wrong and it might not be. On the other hand, I might even be home by the end of March. We'll see. How about about this one? I was talking at lunchtime today about how important it is for us to be in conflict sometimes, right? And Margaret Heffernan said, for good ideas and true innovation, you need human interaction, conflict, argument, and debate. And I was talking about the fact that some of our greatest joys today came about through situations that weren't necessarily very friendly. I was saying that, you know, it took for Napster to come and illegally put on, give people access to free downloads of music. And then, you know, all these sites that did downloaded torrents for movies, you know, all those things were not, they were frowned upon big time. And yet, if you think about it, it is because of the people who did that that we now have Netflix and Prime Video and all those things. We have them because we showed there are enough people in the world that wanted this. They were prepared to download it the way that they did in order to get it. And that, you know, that showed them there was a huge market for somebody who was prepared to do it the right way. And that people would be prepared, all right, to pay for that. And to me, that's really important. I get frustrated, I don't know about you guys, when I pay to have a service that the reason I was prepared to pay for it is it came to me ad-free. And now we're getting services that you end up paying for, but they still have ads on it. I'm going, that's not fair. That's not why I wanted a streaming service, right? How about this one? It was said that nothing is given to man on earth. Struggle is built into nature, the nature of life, and conflict is possible. The hero is the man or woman who lets no obstacle prevent him or her from pursuing their values he has or she has chosen. You see, it's about, if you expect life to be without conflict, you're living in a Disneyland. Life is full of conflict, and it's a good thing. Yes, Jody is saying that in her case, you know, she's continuing the process of preparing both mentally and physically for surgery. This is going to require discipline for the rest of my life. It's going to change many aspects of my life. So I'm embracing that change. And a whole new wardrobe, Jody. A whole new wardrobe. How much do they reckon you will drop? What was it Pat was saying, that she now, a cup of food now is enough for her after her operation? So I'm thinking, have they got any idea of roughly how much you could expect to drop? And so you're going to need a number of different, and maybe if you haven't already, Jody, you may want to talk to Pat about how long that took. In other words, will you need one complete new set of clothes for 2021 and yet another one next time, the following year, and or will you drop 4 sizes in 1 year? I think Pat dropped hers rather dramatically, but I could be wrong, because you're going to end up standing up and your pants are going to drop to the floor, and that's going to be a difficulty. Today's tops are going to be, like dresses on you. All right, so Jody is answering on this one. She's having that lap band surgery, the sleeve, and it says it varies. They aren't sure yet. It depends on so many factors. I think 70% of excess weight, possibly. Wow, that is amazing, isn't it? Are you looking forward to it? And in terms of all the chaos that we're hearing and all the unrest that we're hearing, I want you to remember something that John C. Danforth said. And he said, the loudest voices we hear are those who advocate conflict and divisiveness. So if you think about it, a lot of what we're going to hear is negative stuff. But the point that I keep trying to remind people is We need to hear this negative stuff, because then we will come to a place which will create better. Now, one of the things that I noticed, and I want to talk about this because I want to know if anybody else has found this. About a month ago or less, I started playing a new game on my phone. And it was fun to play. And even was pretty addictive to play. I don't mind telling you that. And then it became pretty absorbing to play. And then I noticed that I was starting to change my routines so that I could play. And the next thing I thought, I don't like what's happening. In order to do well in this game, I need to be playing it almost 24/7. And that's not what I want to be doing. And so part of what I changed this week is to stop playing the game. Not that I won't ever go back and play some more. It's just like I wanted to break the cycle of it getting more and more intense every time I picked it up. And I wonder if any of you have found a game that you really enjoyed, but it turned from an enjoyment into almost an obsession. All right. And that's something we need to be really aware of in terms of our mental health, even in a pandemic. There is a difference between something that is fun to play and something that becomes almost obsessive. And that was the warning signal for me when I found myself, oh, thank you. Sandy saying yes, she found Scrabble online like that. All right. And, and it's built to keep you playing. Why? Because they want you to keep seeing the ads that pop up. Right. And how many of the games, I don't know about you, but it really frustrates me that you go in to play a game. Two things frustrate me. You go in to play a game and you can only play one level and then you got to watch ads. 30 seconds of ads. And then you get to play one more little game and then it's another 30 seconds of ads. So it's worse than television. The other thing that really frustrates me, and I don't know about you guys, is when they show you a game and they give you a little clip of how to play it and you're going, oh, that looks interesting. When you go to play it, the thing that you saw probably is a level 152, and you're playing a totally different game at the beginning. And that makes me angry. It's like the reason I wanted to play it was because that thing I saw, not this junior level. That's not what I wanted. I wanted to start at that level. Okay, so here's some feedback from Rinsky. Hi, Rinsky, always a pleasure. She says, yes, I quit playing the game when it took over. Yes, very important. And Jody is saying, there's so many ads on her Yahtzee now that it's almost unbearable. And that is the whole point, which is when it starts to be a pain, we need to be strong enough to say, I don't need the game that much, or find one where there aren't as many ads. That is your choice, right? You don't have to keep playing. And it took a lot of effort for me to say, you know something, I don't like what this is doing to my life. I'm going to stop playing it for a while. Let me know how you feel. Right. And the whole thing is, quite right, Jody, that they then got the catch me thing, which is if you don't want any ads, just pay us $9 a month. I don't think so. Right? $9 a year, maybe it's worth it, but $9 a month, I don't think so. So change the game. There are so many to play. The same way as I know on the replays, I can choose to fill my whole replay full of ads. I've always said I'll do one at the beginning, but after that, it's clear. right? I just don't want it to be ads every 15 minutes or something. Then I know that, no, well, I don't know many people that enjoy it, quite honestly. It's not why you turned on to watch. How many of you agree with the fact that failure is success in progress? All right? I thought that was nice, that failure is just success in progress. Or how about, again, Wayne Dyer, change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will change. I found that interesting today, where we were talking about, the truth is dependent on where you get your information and whether that information is factually correct or not. And we know that. So the interesting thing to me is that, we had a couple of things that were brought up in the broadcast, and I said, it's interesting because I understood this differently with different facts. And, when we fact checked it, I was pretty sure that my understanding of it was based on facts deeper than the level of facts that were being quoted to me. And I said, yes, I understand it sounded like that, but I think if you dug a bit deeper, there was more information that you might know about. And luckily, Jody was very quick to help me out on that. And we were able to show that, what people thought had happened wasn't what actually happened at all. There was more to the story if you bothered. And how about this one? And this is Ernest Hemingway, and I just thought it was a beautiful quote. Let me know if you agree. He said, "We are all broken. That's how the light gets in." All right? We are all broken. It's okay. That's how the light gets in. And if you look at it, so many things that seemed devastating 5 years ago, as I said, you learn from them, and it makes more sense 5 years later. And how about this one? Talking about your problems is one of the greatest addictions. Break the habit and talk about your joys. I believe a balance of both is really important. I believe that it's important that every week we talk about what was good in our week, but also important for us to talk about what didn't feel as good, right? Because there's nothing wrong with feelings. It's just part of who you are. Now, to me, Nicolas Cage said this. He said, "I think what makes people fascinating is conflict. It's drama. It's the human condition. Nobody wants to watch perfection." Do you agree? That conflict actually is a beautiful part of our life if we can see it that way. And how about this? If you think about it, think about really good movies, really good television series, really good stories of any sort. Is it true, as William Landy said, good stories are driven by conflict, tension, and high stakes? Can you tell me what was, in your view, what television series did you most enjoy? Which one was just like you couldn't stop binge watching it. I started to watch one series this week, and guess what? It was full of conflict and tension and high stakes, and I loved it. And I'm so glad I found it when I was sick, because that really kept me entertained. But it was just like, I remember when I was in Africa, that Dallas was running, obviously here in the US at that time, and we got we got it on DVD, if you remember, not DVD, sorry, VCRs. And that was the first time I remember binge watching everything, because we could. I could go to my local store and I could get 5 or 6 of them and rent them for the weekend, and then I would binge watch them because I really loved it. And I found that I've been watching the series Yellowstone, which I want to tell you is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. And boy, it's like Dallas on steroids, It's just like, talk about what power buys you and doesn't buy you, and the troubles. And it was, I don't know why I didn't expect it to be. I expected it to be good because Costner was in it, Kevin Costner, but I didn't expect it to be as tense or dramatic, or the stakes to be as high as they were. But that's what made it a great story. Oh, Rinsky's saying, yep, she really enjoyed Breaking Bad. Now, I never got into that, but maybe this is a good time for me to watch it, because I'm looking for a new series. Thank you very much, Rinsky. I will give that another look. I've seen a couple of them, but I never got into it properly, all right? How about this one? Stephen Moyer said, conflict is drama, and how people deal with conflict shows you the kind of people they are. Right? The way that people deal with conflict shows you the kind of people they are. My big experiment today on doing the Friday lunchtime broadcast about conflict, and intentionally putting conflict into it, was to see, could my viewers keep control of their negative energy enough to be able to hear the conflict situation and not run away from it. And I was amazed how well they did. I really was. Because that is part of being emotionally intelligent. You do not expect everything to be your way. You are not the ruler of the universe. You are still entitled to your opinion, and it's okay to disagree. All right. But the thing is, most people are not taught to deal with conflict. Right? They think everything needs to be harmonious, and everybody must agree. And you think about it. Not too many things happen that way in reality. It is people with opposing views that make life interesting and also teach us so much. And again, Ronald Reagan said, peace is not the absence of conflict. It is the ability to handle conflict by peaceful means. And, I just wish I'd understood this a whole lot better earlier in my life, in as much as I think I would have chosen marriage partners differently, and I would have dealt with conflict very differently. And Wayne Dyer said, conflict cannot survive without your participation. So in other words, there are 2 ways of dealing with it. One is to, actually there are 3 ways, I think. Number 1 is to run away from it. Oh, I don't like this. It's not nice anymore. Instead of going, okay, I need to get more interested now. I need to, the other thing is not to take it personally. Also, do you understand that part of conflict is get interested? Not everybody is stupid for disagreeing with you. They've got a good reason for not agreeing, and you need to hear them out. It's very important. Very important. Okay, so Jody's telling me that Lionel really loved Breaking Bad. All right, so that's a pretty good recommendation. And So anybody else got a binge-worthy series that I, might go to? Definitely it's on my list that I need to go back and have a look at a couple more episodes of that. Brad Pitt, listen to that. Brad Pitt said, happiness is overrated. There has to be conflict in life, right? If you talk to people who've been married a long time, I haven't heard any person who's been married a long time, when they were asked, what's the secret to being happily married? I didn't hear anybody say, never have an argument. Right? It's not what I heard. How about this? Happiness is the byproduct of function, purpose, and conflict. Those who seek happiness for itself seek victory without war. All right, so it's like, it's not where. And this is like, Rene Girard said, we are aware that globalization doesn't mean global friendship, but global competition and therefore conflict. That doesn't mean we will have to destroy one another, but it's not happy global village either. Agreed? We should expect conflict. It's okay to have different views. And Jan Schakowsky, I think, said there's a lot that happens around the world that we cannot control. We cannot stop earthquakes. We cannot prevent droughts. We cannot prevent all conflict. But when we know the hungry and the homeless and the sick exist, then we can help. How many of you know that as we continue with this pandemic, more and more people are going to be evicted? More and more people, are not sitting on pensions or disability checks or whatever. They are just previously hardworking people who now do not have a job and have no way of paying the rent and no way of putting food on the table. And so there's part of me that says, I'm waiting to hear tomorrow whether they're going to lift some of the restrictions here in British Columbia, because I think it is really important to start doing something differently. How I'm pretty certain that the people who live in this apartment block are doing pretty well, because it's a pretty affluent type apartment block. It's like really well maintained, and the prices are pretty high on it. And you just have to see the cars in the parking garage underneath to know these people are obviously, pretty well off. But you look at it and you go, who's living around the corner? It's, who's hungry? And what can we do? And so maybe we could do that. Maybe we'll do a broadcast thinking of creative ways that we can help people. Because I think it's really important. Jody is saying that The Undoing with Nicole Kidman is a good series too. Okay, that's good to know. That's on Netflix, isn't it? Or is it on Prime? I always like good recommendations. When I'm not doing Dear Mama Sal, it's like Saturdays are normally what I call my day off, and I'm allowed to do all sorts of things I wouldn't normally do. And so, Saturday's tomorrow. So, and I've run out of my, it's on Prime at the moment. Okay, let me make a note, George, so don't forget. Thank you for that. Keep feeding them to me, because I'm going to need them. One of the things I've noticed is I have all the Prime and Netflix and Roku type stuff on the television here, but not on the television in my bedroom. And I now know that when I get home, I am going to need two televisions that have that availability, or at least hook up my Wii to my one in my bed. Excuse me, the one in my bedroom, because I'm not going to bring my turtle gym back in, and I will have a nice area to do my exercise. And maybe I will just use the one in my bedroom to do my Wii type exercises on. Oh, interesting. Rinsky saying, I help homeless cats by catching them and getting them neutered and releasing. Interesting. And then feeding them. And then you let them back into. Do you find them a new home, or do you just feed them, put them back on the street? What an incredible thing to do. You know, one of the dreams that I had. Yes, I understand they're strays, but after you've neutered them, what do you do with them? Do you put them back on the street, or do you keep them? Or find a new home for them, or whatever? That's what I'm trying to work out. Oh, so you've done both. You've released some back on the streets, and then you've kept 3 of them. Yeah, that's how you become a cat lady. I understand it. Interesting thing. How about this one? Whenever you're in conflict with someone, there is one factor that can make the difference between damaging your relationship and deepening it. The factor is attitude. Can any of you think of a time where you had a really good argument with someone, and instead of destroying the relationship, your relationship ended up better because of it? Maybe because you told the truth that they hadn't heard before. And, you know, it's important to understand this. And how about this one? I'm certain a lot of you will agree with this one. People like to say that conflict is between good and evil. The real conflict is between truth and lies. Or I'd like to say between truth and misunderstanding. And I was saying at lunchtime, I honestly do believe that a lot of the conflict we have today is because of social media. And, you know, so many people are feeding half-truths to so many people who think they're truths. And that makes life very, very difficult. And they're not the same people who will say, I heard that, let me go and investigate that more, you know, and get at least 3 other viewpoints in that. I was actually trying to teach at lunchtime today, you know, when you hear a piece of news and you think it might not be true, where are you going to check it out? How are you going to check it out? Very important. And again, this one also is very important, and we're seeing this in large amounts at the moment. One of the main tasks of theology, you know, of religion, is to find words that do not divide but unite, that do not create conflict but rather unity, and that do not hurt but heal. And I'm pretty certain that that is what everybody is looking for at the moment. We're not looking to hurt anymore. We're looking to start healing and to not keep insulting people and make disparaging marks about them and giving them nasty nicknames and goodnesses. We're looking to see a change. And I'm a great believer, you know, we need to be that change. And we need to step up. And when we hear people doing these things, we need to actually have a voice and go, you know, that's not nice. Jody's saying, I have a disagreement with a friend that's deepened our friendship. We were able to discover each other's boundaries and learn so much. Real life stuff about each other during that conflict. Yes, because when you go deeper, you find out more, and more sometimes is magically hidden. And Rinsky is saying, yes, and I agree. In order to see change around you, it must start with you. Yes, we must be the change. If we want to see peace, we need to stand up to conflict. We need to be prepared to say to people, if we hear somebody being rude, and in the supermarket lineup, you hear somebody being rude to a cashier or something, you need to say, excuse me, that is rude. And they will get even more angry, but don't let them get away with thinking that's okay. Or even just say, that's not okay to talk to another human being like that. How about this one? How many of you agree with this statement? Washing one's hands of the conflict between the powerful and the powerless means to side with the powerful, not to be neutral. All right, so if you don't get involved in calming things down and making sure, if you're not part of the peace process, all right, then basically you are siding with the powerful. So if you genuinely believe, that we shouldn't have as many stray cats on the street, all right, you need to be doing something about it. And you need to be part of that process. And, you have the ability, not only to you doing it, Rinsky, but influencing other people, maybe $5 a month towards your fund to help these, new to these cats. You just got to find a couple of cat people and it'll be done. And boy, you can do that online if you want to, right? That's the power of online today. Thomas Paine said, the harder the conflict, the more glorious the triumph. The harder the conflict. And again, remember that no major changes have happened in life without conflict. All right? And so conflict is part of change. And there's part of me that goes, all this conflict that's been going on, I see great hope in this, because I think a lot of people are going to be very keen for changes to be made. And therefore, it'll make so much more sense. I believe that, I heard something horrifying today that really is affecting me. I normally don't have too many bad things to say about Canada, but I heard to my horror today that apparently, there is a world special fund where all the richer countries are putting away vaccines for the third world countries, right? And all the major countries are doing that. And I heard today that Canada has pulled out some of their stock that they were going to send to third world countries. They pulled some of that out to hasten the vaccines in Canada itself. Now, there's part of me that goes, I understand the why. And why did they do it? Because I checked that out. There had to be a good reason. The reason they're doing it is the vaccines they were promised are not going to be delivered in time. Guess why? Certain other countries probably bid more, and then the stuff that was meant to come to Canada, somebody's been willing to pay more, and it's that's how the system works. And their vaccines have been rerouted elsewhere, and so instead of getting this many thousands, they're getting this less 20%. So, but they need that extra 20% to be able to give second vaccines to people. So it makes sense to me. But, on the surface, it is horrifying to think that some third world country now is not going to get as many vaccines because of the greed. How about this one? I like this one. Some of you might agree with this. Reputation is what men and women think of us. Character is what God and the angels know of us. Would you agree? There is a tremendous difference between your reputation and your character. Tremendous difference. I've always said, and I will continue to say, that if in any broadcast I do, if it helped any one human being, that it was worth the time it took to put together. And to me, it's so important that we understand that we all have the ability to change people's lives. Rinsky just did it. You know what she typed? I really like these quotes. So therefore, was it worth the time to put them together? You bet it was. And how about this? Again, Thomas Paine said, we have it in our power to begin the world over again. One of my comments today at lunchtime was, instead of, we know that we need clean air. We know that we need to stop using fossil fuels. So therefore, all the people who have lost their jobs because of the downing of the pipeline thing, being reversed, let's retrain them into solar energy. Let's retrain them into, clean air type industries so that they are ready for the new world as we will see it. I've got to show you something. Do you guys know the difference between a sunrise and a sunset industry? It's or anything, a sunrise or a sunset thing is really important to understand. And okay, so here's the thing. Do any of you remember the Walkman? I think the Walkman was just like such a mind-blowing idea at the time. The fact you could have a radio you didn't have to plug in. In fact, something that could play a record that you didn't have to plug in. Oh, you could walk with it. It was so exciting. And so therefore, would you agree that the birth of portable electronics was a sunrise moment? All right. Why? Because as that grew, things got cheaper and cheaper, and we learned about, what do you call it? Intel core processors and everything. Computers changed. A computer that used to cost, $4,000 now costs $200. Televisions that used to cost, you think about it, all that start of things like the Walkman, led to a revolution. The space age led to things like Sealy, what do you call it? Tempur-Pedic mattresses, things like that. That came about because of the space age. So a sunrise thing is something that is running with the new trends. All right. However, as this trend happened in terms of electronic media, you also will have other industries that become sunset. All right. Because they used to be really big things, but because of this sunrise industry growing, these will drop away. So you understand that for a while, the Walkman was the sunrise until they came up with the iPad and the iPhone and then suddenly the Walkman became a sunset thing. Am I making sense here? The birth of, how many of you, we were talking about Blockbuster at lunchtime. At the time when we had VCRs, Blockbuster and all those things were absolutely sunrise industries. Everybody wanted to be part, and it was wonderful. And then that little company, what was it called? Netflix came in and said, we'll let you have a DVD for as long as you like. All right, we'll mail it to you and you can watch it for 3 months if you want to. And just when you return it, you can get your next one. Sunrise moment right there. However, sunrise of Netflix and streaming that came after it was the sunset of what? Right? So you understand each a cause and effect. This will be a sunrise company. How many of you know that just having the internet, right? That was sunrise, still is. However, the sunset of that were things like magazines, newspapers, right? Become sunset because of the sunrise. Yeah, Rinsky, exactly. Rinsky's saying, I heard that Blockbuster had the option to buy Netflix for cheap in the beginning, but chose not to. Yeah. Yes, and exactly, Jody. The sunrise of Netflix was the demise of Blockbuster. Right? And so what was the sunrise became the sunset. So here was the comment I was making at lunchtime. I do not believe that fossil fuels are in sunrise anymore. I think they're in the shade. And I think they're into sunset. And what is up here in sunrise is solar energy, wind power, all the things that don't require fossil fuels. Therefore, it's really important. How many of you can see that even though we thought electric cars maybe would come around, but not in our generation, how many of you are going, well, how wrong could I be? And then, a couple of people will have them, but, they won't be sort of mainstream. Well, hello, what's sunrise? Not fossil fuel cars, sunrise now, because they brought the price down enough that everybody can afford them more easily. They become, now that's sunrise stuff. Jody is saying, I remember mailing DVDs back to Netflix. Now look at streaming. Everything is online. Yeah, absolutely. And they've become a major movie producer. All right? and television producer, if you like. They've become the next Hollywood type funding for major programs. Yes, Vrinsky saying, I read one car company, and I forgot which, will sell only electric cars by 2040. I think it'll be sooner than that. Quite honestly, I think it'll be sooner than that. One of the most interesting speeches I have ever read, and I probably mentioned it before, but I don't know whether it's to this group of people, but one of the most interesting speeches I read was a speech given by the CEO of Daimler-Benz, the Mercedes-Benz guy. And that CEO talked about what was going to happen to motor cars in the next 5 to 10 years and the effect it was going to have on everything. Because you understand, as we move into electric cars, how many of you believe that driverless cars, that you're going to have cars that go from GPS. You're not going to have to drive them. You're just going to, say, okay, I need a car. And like an Uber will arrive, but it'll be empty. It's the empty Uber. All right. And you'll just get in it, and you will have already told it on your device that you want to go up to the store and buy some things, and it will deliver you just where you need to go and drop you off, and it'll go on its way. And you will do your shopping if you choose not to do it online. You will do your shopping, and then you will just type in again, I need another remote car, and it will drive up, and it will only open its doors to your cell phone, and you will get in, and it'll all be paid electronically. Okay, so Rinsky's saying, what about the animals that run in front of the driverless car? Do we know a lot about Rinsky today? Have we learned a lot about Rinsky today? I think they've thought of that, Rinsky. I think they have sensors in them for things like that. If you think about it, they've already got cameras in cars that can sense, things running behind them and so forth. And so I'm sure that the driverless cars will have those sensors as well. Or they need to. Hi, Brianna, good to see you. All right, and Brianna's saying, I think it would be, I'd be scared to go onto it because what if it crashes unknowingly? Well, it's the same way as an aeroplane, right? How many of you are aware that most airplanes don't actually need a pilot these days, right? Why do they still have them? Passengers like it, you know. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I understand that, a lot of people are going to be scared to get into them, but, eventually enough people will realize they actually have proven, Brianna, that when we get these cars, they are going to be far safer than humans. Far safer. They will have more devices to keep them safe, and they'll be far more reliable than humans as well. However, the point I'm making is to go back to that speech I was talking about. What the guy from Mercedes-Benz said, and I thought it was fascinating, it will be the death of the car insurance business as we know it. Why? There won't be enough accidents for people. People won't need their own cars, right? You will be able to get into the driverless Uber type thing for far, far less than it costs you to keep a car on the road. So why would you keep a car if you can just instantly call up, and it will go? Makes sense. And what they're saying is, but the effect of it will be that the insurance companies will go bankrupt. I actually asked when I renewed my insurance, why am I paying this much for my insurance this year? I've only driven my car once a week. Yeah, and Rinsky's saying, I can't wait until I don't need to pay for car insurance. So you think about it, all these changes are coming. Are you ready for it? Because this guy from Mercedes said it's not only going to be insurance companies. Yeah. He's saying that I know this is going to blow your mind, that the computer programs today, the artificial intelligence today, in, let's say, the business of being a lawyer, that they have got that whole lawyer mentality programmed now, that a computer will give you much better advice than most lawyers. Why? It has a much bigger brain, and it can access that information in a split second and give you the answer. And you will not need to pay hundreds of dollars for a lawyer. You will be able to get it online. So please don't let your grandchildren or your children, train to be lawyers anymore. They are saying that it literally is getting to the stage, and it will become so probably in my lifetime, that we will do more of our health analysis via the computer, and probably the doctor we talk to won't be a human. We will just be typing in our symptoms, and the computer will ask us certain questions, and it will advise you, what to do. Yes, and Rinsky's saying maybe car insurance companies are getting ready for this because they're selling home and every other sort of insurance now, not just car insurance. They have to diversify, Rinsky, you're quite right. But I want to tell you, this whole speech that he gave was talking about all those sunset industries, you get it? And he was saying, as the electrical car becomes on the mainstream, it's no longer, only the rich can afford it or whatever, that countries realize that the emissions will change everything else. They will then, it will happen so fast. What they had to wait for, just so that you know, and it's already happened, of course, they had to wait for the battery development, that became big enough, good enough. And then the rest of it is purely a programming function. But what he said is, you're researching, and then suddenly we've now got the battery problems fixed. We've now got this fixed. Now we got to work out, what about, where are people going to plug in and recharge? That's another problem. And then they'll fix that problem. And then suddenly it takes off. And what is happening, he said that exponential growth in the electronic car, he reckons will happen within another 5 years. In other words, all the growth that we've seen up until now will exponentially explode in the next 5 years. I think he said 10, but he gave that speech a little while ago. So if you're not prepared for that, it's going to be a bit of a shock. I think the pandemic is actually preparing us for lots of change. What do you think? Jody is saying, yes, you're going to have a human diagnostics check. You're going to plug yourself in, and the things that were science fiction when I was growing up are now reality. I think you literally will have Hal plugged in, and Hal will go, okay, fine, this is what you need. But he'll do it in a split second. You won't have to go and wait in a waiting room. We'll be able to plug into our phones or whatever the device is called then, and do that automatically. When we do the A1C check for our diabetes or pre-diabetes, we won't need to go anywhere. We'll just, literally, we'll have an implant or something, and boom, it'll be done. So to me, what I'm trying to say is that change is inevitable, and people are going to fight it, so we're going to have conflict. What is it going to do if you think about this? If we have electric cars that are not going to have crashes as much as humans, that are not going to need repairs as much as humans, what's going to happen to all the service stations that do all the places, the car repair places? All right, totally gone. That's a sunset industry. So what I tried to say at lunchtime was things like canceling the pipeline that's going to ruin, a lot of things. It's not about losing jobs. It's about fossil fuels is a sunset industry. If you want the country to grow, if you want the country to succeed in the coming generations, you have to start looking at sunrise. I was saying to Jody between the two broadcasts, how many of you remember when Greenpeace was a fringe element? When Greenpeace was a radical group of hippies that needed to get thrown into the clinker somewhere and throw the key away. I can remember that. I can remember, those protesters being really not liked at all. And they were just, the fringe element. And I'm going, or were they really ahead of their time? And it took us a while to listen to them. Right? Took us a while to listen to them and realize that they were quite right. We just didn't want to see it. Why? It meant we had to change. And it meant we had to look at things and be uncomfortable. And it meant so many other things. And the same way as, people denying global warming or whatever. Boy, I could talk about this stuff right now until Christmas. So please, everybody, don't run away from conflict. Listen hard. I had a major question today about something that happened in Congress with the issue about this Marjorie Taylor Greene. And the reason I have an issue is she was allowed into Congress and they already knew what she believed in. Why is she only being restricted now? Right? That's a double standard. And if she is being restricted for what she believes, that is not democratic. Right? She got voted in by the people that voted her in. She is entitled to be there. And she is entitled to say, however, she does need to be polite and respectful and obey, Robert's rules that they use in those sort of environments. But you cannot throw her out because she believes something different. Right? You can throw her out for threatening to hurt people, because she doesn't believe what they believe. That's a different thing. That's threatening people. That's against the law. But you can't throw her out because of what she believes. It's a slippery slope we don't want to go down. If you believe in free speech and democracy, that is a road you don't want to go down. And that makes us all uncomfortable because, it's so horrible to hear some of the stuff that she's talking about. But on the other hand, be aware that an awful lot of people are talking like that. And why are they talking like that? Because they're not feeling heard. And they don't feel that, that the mainstream listens to them. And they're angry. And you know what happens when people get angry and they don't know how to peacefully get change done? We know what happens then. So expect conflict and expect difficult situations, but we can choose. We can choose our reactions. So listen more if you can. When you come across somebody that vehemently disagrees with what you believe to be true, go, that is interesting, tell me more. And then if you still don't agree, make sure you say, hey, I found that interesting. I learned a lot listening from you today. I still agree to disagree right now. But the truth is, thank you for spending the time helping to educate me. Now, the fact that they didn't want to hear your side of the story, that's human nature, all right? But if you find people that totally disagree with you that are prepared to listen to your side of the story as well, then you have somebody with character. And all I'm begging you is, if we want to change the world peacefully, we need to listen to the people who don't agree with us. What do you think? We need to hear the conflict and realize somebody is angry. And part of conflict resolution is making the peace. All right? And understanding that people are angry because they're not getting heard. They are upset for good reason. Now, is it all truthful? Not necessarily. And understand that social media is feeding the fears and the anger at a rate we have never seen before in our lifetimes or any other lifetime, right? It is social media that is making these little things that are not necessarily true blow up into what people think are absolute solid facts, and they're not. And if we understand that, I gave the example at lunchtime about the whole QAnon thing. That's what we were discussing. What is QAnon? Why is it, it's a problem? And this is about, it's not easy to hear what it's about and realize that most of its followers, were taught their beliefs via social media, and these people did not dig deeper, and they believed the conspiracy theories and whatever. And you're not going to change their minds, right? So therefore, we need to understand we're going to probably be sitting down, when the pandemic's over and we're allowed to sit down with people like normal again. Well, never be normal, but when we can get into groups again, we're going to have far more angry people talking to us, far more people, telling us they don't agree with us. And it is up to us, if we believe in peace, to learn how to cope with that and how to re-educate them, or at least give them another point of view. If they don't choose to listen, that is their right. I don't think I'm right on everything at all. But I am prepared to listen, and I am prepared to check the facts out. Make sense? And that was my other issue at lunchtime. Are you taking things at face value? Or are you checking things out in places that you think will tell you the truth? But if you only check the people you believe to be telling you the truth, you may not be hearing the truth. Scary, huh? And Rinsky's saying, a friend told me, if you can't argue both sides, if you don't have the research, right? So this was it. Don't bother to have the conversation if you don't have the research you should have. That's called debate, right? Don't bother to, and that was the thing I was describing, Rinsky, was that during one of the broadcasts last week, somebody brought up something and I realized I did not know enough about it. And I stopped that conversation dead in its tracks, because everything I said from that point onwards would be what I thought had happened, not what I knew had happened. Do you understand? So therefore, I'm not going to continue, because I can only make it worse if I continue with what I don't know. I need to make sure that I do know. I totally agree with you that we need to, but the thing is, people do believe they have the truth. That is the scary thing. They really believe this stuff. That is why the QAnon people are called the believers, because they believe what they're being told. Okay? And why? Because people in the news that they follow have been telling them lies, and they believe them. Why? Because surely those people wouldn't lie to us. And now they're finding out that those people are not only going to lose jobs, but those people are going to get sued big time. All right? And we're talking about multi-billion-dollar lawsuits for telling lies that will affect my business. Is that fair? I think so. Yes, and Vrinsky, don't worry about it, honey. It really, I understood what you meant, right? So it's and Jody, thank you for the translation. But the whole thing is expect conflict and learn how to deal with it as peacefully as possible. I'm hoping you learned something today, not only about past presidents, but how many of you have learned something about sunrise and sunset industries? Think about what is a sunrise industry today and know that within 5 years, it could be a sunset industry. All right? So we're changing at such a speed. We never thought we'd be having appointments with our doctors over Zoom, did we? We never dreamt that we wouldn't be able to travel. I never dreamt for a moment that I would not see baby Leah when she was born. Or here she is, already just about ready to walk, and I still haven't met her in person. So you look at it and you go, this is change. I don't know that I will see her in my lifetime. I could be gone next week. Why? We heard from Beth last week that somebody was working one day and 48 hours later was gone with COVID. And they were healthy and 34. So here we go. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast, even though it was difficult in places. I hope you learned something. I hope it made you think a little bit. And I hope that you are so grateful that you found out more about Rinsky, and you know that she is definitely an animal person. Something we did not know until today. Rinsky, I thought it was beautiful. Well done. Never mind progress. What about if an animal runs in front of that thing? Yeah. Never, not a human, an animal. Not a kid chasing after a ball, but an animal. I love you for it. It was absolutely character defining in that moment. And what I love about human nature is, isn't it wonderful how we learn about each other through the simplest of comments and things? Rinsky, with tears in my eyes, honey. we love people who love animals. Look after one another, people, and look after yourself. We may or may not see you on Sunday, depending what the vote is. So have a wonderful week if I don't see you. I really encourage you to keep notes on what's happening in your life so you can discuss it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's important, all right? It's important somewhere you tell the truth and you get some support, and especially when we're in a pandemic. Life's getting lonely, and we've done a year of it now, and we're not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So please look after one another. Please think about how many people can we help and how do we do it now that we're not allowed to go and help them. There has to be a way to do this. And I think I definitely want to do one broadcast where we brainstorm things that we can do to help our fellow human being. How do we find out who's suffering? Do you know who's suffering on your street? You know, one of the questions I asked as soon as the pandemic hit in the community where I lived was, how do we help the people who will be struggling because of this? Do we know enough that we need to know who to help? You know, and they said, oh, well, you know, and I said, no, if we are a community of people who care, and we should be, then we need to know what's happening on our street. Not that we need to be nosy Parkers, but it's about, do we know anybody that's struggling? And if we don't, does my neighbor know anybody that's struggling? And if they don't, does the neighbor's neighbor know if anybody that needs help? Because if we want to change the world, then we need to change our community. And if we want peace, we need to be able to handle conflict without being aggressive. This is DearMamaSal saying, good job, people. So proud of you. Whew. I might see you on Sunday, who knows? Go, Super Bowl. I love the Super Bowl myself. So there's part of me that goes, I probably will end up canceling it. The point is, what will I do with that broadcast? Move it or just delay it until the following week? This is DearMamaSal saying, who knows? I'll let you know. Bye-bye for now.